So the first slide that I have up, just as we're going through, I want you to think about what worked well last time you taught, as well as what could you change, what maybe didn't go so well, just something to keep in mind. Please feel free to ask any questions in the chat box. Audio is not working for just the participants, but we are glad to have you, and we would love it if you just had anything to contribute in the chat box. Please feel free. All right, so the first thing that we want to do, and by the way, as you can hopefully see, my name is Liz Kroll. I'm an instructional designer with CC as well as Sarah Harrell. She is going to be facilitating and moderating the chat box. So any questions you have, feel free to type them in and we'll get them addressed or send you the appropriate links. Anything we can do.
Hi, everyone.
So the first thing that we think about whenever we think about starting the semester up, we think about, do you actually have your courses? Are your courses showing up in your D2L? Are they showing up in Uconnect? So hopefully everybody, if you haven't checked by now, hopefully you've seen that you do have courses in D2L, you do have your CRNs in Uconnect, and if you don't, please email us as soon as possible and we would be glad to get that taken care of for you. So are you seeing them in D2L? Are you seeing them in Uconnect? Do you have a course shell? Are you enrolled in the course? Of course, that goes hand in hand. Hopefully, if you're seeing them in D2L, if you're seeing them in Uconnect, then you are enrolled in your course. We have occasionally seen some where the instructor might be enrolled, but the students aren't enrolled. And so you can do that by going to Communications and Class List and seeing that your students are enrolled. So the basic things that we are going to cover are if you're using the appropriate template, if your courses have content, do you have students in your course, and then we're going to spend a few minutes at the end just setting you up for success so that you can set your students up for success as well. A few of you submitted some specific requests, and so we are also going to go over conditional releases and date releases, so restricting access to materials based on completion or based on date, as well as keeping track of discussions. And then Jeff, I know that you specifically had a question on using McGraw-Hill Connect, and so we might not be able to focus on that in the webinar, but I'd be happy to help you with that one-on-one. Managing dates does not change all of the dates in the assignments, and I know that's I consider it a glitch. It's something we've brought up every time we've talked to D2L, but we will talk about how you can unfortunately change those dates by hand. It just unfortunately won't be all at once, but we will talk about that. So for the moment, I'm going to go ahead and assume that everybody is enrolled in their courses and you do have all of your courses listed in D2L and in Uconnect. And we're going to move on to what to do with those shells. Does everybody, or I guess a better question is, has everybody already copied course content into your shells, or do you have blank shells at the moment? Most of you will be using an approved template, and so whenever you have, whenever you first get into your course shell, it might look a little blank like the one you're seeing right now, as opposed to a populated course shell. So I'm seeing a little bit of both. Okay, so an indication that you are using the course template is that oftentimes it will have a header, It'll have some distinctive widgets, including the quality seal. One way, if you are unsure, then you can always send an email to us and ask, and we can check your CRN and see if you are using the approved template. And if not, we can go ahead and copy that approved template in for you. We strongly encourage that you use the template. It's been approved, it's gone through the evaluation process, and it is certified as high quality. If you still have blank shells, then we can go into Edit Course and import or copy content. And you can either copy from a previous semester that you have taught, you can copy from the template. If you would like help with that, or really if you would like help with anything that we're going to talk about today, then always feel free to email me, email anybody in our department, and we'd be happy to walk you through it one-on-one. So moving on, the biggest thing, once you get your course content in there, the biggest thing that really needs to be changed are dates, like you were talking about, Jeff. Typically that starts with the syllabus. Do you have the correct CRN? Do you have your assignment dates? Is your schedule updated? And then it's getting into other places in D2L where you might need to change those dates. As Jeff pointed out to us earlier, managed dates is not changing all of the dates in D2L, so unfortunately you will have to go in and look at those dates in all of the different places. However, I suppose silver lining, we have listed all these places out for you, so at least you have a checklist for everything that you might need to check. One of the bigger places that you would need to change dates are in the modules. And so this will hit on two of the aspects. You can see you can add a start date and a due date, as well as an end date. Typically, we do not advocate having an end date on modules and on content because we want to make sure that students still have access even after assignments might be due. And so that's not to say that you can't have end dates on your Dropboxes, on your discussions. However, we want to make sure that the students can still access the content and go back and review if they need to. So be careful on adding end dates on modules. Additionally, you can see the opportunity to add release conditions. And Charlie, that's where you would add a condition that they have to have completed the previous module's checklist or the previous module's Dropbox discussion, whatever you want that based on. Just like dates, release conditions apply to only where you set them. So if you set module dates or module release conditions, that does not necessarily mean that it applies to everything in the module. So if you have a module 1 that contains both a discussion, a Dropbox, an overview, and some kind of lecture, and you would like that to be contingent on them getting a 100% on a syllabus quiz, you can set that for Module 1, and so they wouldn't see Module 1 until they had completed and received a 100% on the syllabus quiz. However, I would also advise that you put that same release condition on the discussion and the Dropbox as well. Or students can go in through the Dropbox and discussion tools and access it that way. I think personally this is my my own personal opinion. Yours may differ, but I would recommend adding release conditions to discussions and Dropboxes, but not necessarily the module structure, because if you add it to the module structure, then it disappears for students, and sometimes students can get confused on whether or not, you know, they'll believe it or not, we've had some students that just complete the orientation, say like, well, that was it. I've completed the course, and that's not necessarily true. The orientation just opened up the rest of the course, and so by adding release conditions to the individual elements and not the modules, students can see that there are more things to the course, they just don't have access to them yet. And as always, whenever we are using release conditions, we always advocate that in your orientation module, you are very, very clear with students what they need to complete and how the release conditions work. So if you do have an orientation, a syllabus quiz that they must receive 100% on in order to move forward, you say in your welcome letter, there is an orientation syllabus quiz. You must receive a 100% before you will receive access to the rest of the class. So that way it's just you're setting and meeting students' expectations, and students feel more comfortable navigating and know exactly where to go. So are there any questions so far? I see Charlie typing. I want to make sure that I'm giving you ample time for questions, and there will definitely be time at the end as well. But always feel free to jump in with any questions that you have. You are very welcome, Charlie. I'm glad that we could get that sorted out for you. Release conditions can be a little bit tricky both for instructors and students. So if you have a specific question on an assignment or some content, we'd be happy to help you on that. All right, I'm not seeing anybody typing at the moment, so we're going to move on. But again, as you have questions, just feel free to let us know. So the road close, that just applies to what we were just talking about with the release conditions and dates. Students can get incredibly frustrated if they don't know what's going on, or if they don't know what to expect. So with the release conditions and with the dates, it's always better to over-explain and be over-clear rather than under-explain and leave students worrying that they've missed something. So the next thing that we want to check after dates are the links. And so often we see, what worked last semester may not work this semester. And so we recommend that you go through and you check every single link, especially before it goes live. Not only is this a good start of semester recommendation, but I would say that even just throughout the semester, links can change just overnight, and so they might be rehosting it, or it might be taken down, and so I would check them now, and then as each module opens up, I would check it before it goes live as well. Additionally, UCO has changed their website. I think many places are constantly in the process of changing their websites, so we're still finding broken links. So again, just a reminder to check and check again. If you do need to fix a broken link, it is incredibly easy, and so you can just click the down arrow and click Edit Link, and once you've found the correct one, you'll just paste it in and it's fixed. Any questions on links? All right. This leads us right into ADA, because in addition to wanting everything to function properly, that also applies to accessibility. We want to make sure that every student has a quality experience with their e-learning course, and their face-to-face course as well. But this is an incredibly broad topic, so we're going to go over just some of the highlights. If you have specific questions, about anything that may or may not be compliant, or if you receive a letter of accommodation, please let us know as soon as possible, and we would be glad to get you set up and get some help with that. We are committed to making our courses as accessible as possible, and not only does that apply to students with disabilities, but we have found that the more accessible we make our courses, the better experience it is for every student. So we have quite a few resources at hand, and this is also just one more reason to use the approved template. The approved templates have been checked for compliance, and anything that is not compliant has been noted, and we've done our best to make sure that every resource that can be made compliant is compliant. So if you are not using the approved template, we don't know that the course is compliant, and that means that we don't know that every student will have a good experience. So if you have questions about the template, if you have questions about compliance, just let us know and we would be glad to help you. Here are a few tips. We want to make sure that you are using a CC built HTML template. And so you'll be able to tell typically they look really nice, they have headings. We always want to make sure that we are using the headings and the paragraph function. We don't change fonts, font sizes, because students in D2L have the option of changing their own font sizes, and if you change them, then it overrides their settings and it could impact the accessibility of those pages. So never change the font or size of the text, and make sure that you're using a CC developed ADA approved template. As always, if you have a question about it, just let us know and we'd be glad to go in and check. Additionally, Word documents and PDFs can also be made accessible. So make sure that you're using the headings, make sure that you have alternate text. Word has an ADA checker feature, as does Adobe. And so you can check your pages, and they also have suggestions for if you do need to change something. They'll walk you through the process of making it accessible. The biggest thing we see is, do you have alternate text for images? And so under Format Picture, you can add alt text. Something to consider is that whenever you're adding alternate text, you don't necessarily have to describe every aspect of the picture. Jeff, I'm going to pick on you because I know what you teach. If we're talking about treatment of an athletic injury, you don't necessarily have to describe that it is a brown table with a beige bandage. We want to think about what the image is trying to convey. And so if there's somebody lying on a table and they're having their ankle treated, you would say, you know, patient is having their ankle treated with a bandage in order to compress, now I'm getting out of my depth, in order to make sure that there is adequate support for the ankle. So think about what the image is trying to convey rather than every single detail, like it is a 3-foot high table. So think about that and focus on the larger picture. For any audio or video needs, we do have Steph Rogers, who's our e-learning accessibility specialist, and she is fantastic at making sure that all of our videos or any audio is closed caption. So we have a sheet for you that Sarah is going to copy into the chat feature. You can submit your own videos and your own audio. Is there a transcript? We want to make sure that we are providing all students with the opportunity to see or hear the material in the medium that they need. And we're making it even easier because we are doing that work for you. We have a captioning service, so all you have to do is make sure that the videos are in the My Media or Kaltura account and put in a request, and we can make sure that your videos are captioned. Additional resources are webaim.org, and you can always send us your requests for captioning. Let us know if you receive a letter of accommodation or if you just have a question. We'd be glad to help you. And by we, I do mean Steph. She's in here right now. Say hi, Steph. We would all be glad to help you. Steph in particular knows all about the law and even just best practices to make sure that everybody has a quality experience.
Liz, I wanted to jump in and say that Steph has already created a few video tutorials to walk you through making any Word or PDF document accessible, and we can definitely share those out to anyone who requests those.
Excellent. So even better. So the ones that we can't do for you, we can at least show you how to do those. So again, we love Steph. Sarah, I'm sorry, Steph might be my favorite person in the office. I know I say that a lot. I'm starting to think it's
That's
true.
fair. Totally agree.
So we are all here to help, and again, just let us know if you have any questions and if you receive a letter of accommodation. We're going to spend the last couple minutes before questions. We've gotten through some of the technical aspects of it, and so now it's just thinking about what can we do to set you up for success so that you're setting your students up for success. One of the great things to do is just open up the course early. And so you can go to Edit Course, Course Offering Information, and Start Date, and adjust that date as soon as you feel comfortable with how you've set your course up. And then send them an email. Just welcome them, let them know that you are there, let them know that the course is open, how they can find it. And additionally, this will let students know to go in and check, and instead of receiving emails, the week after saying, hey, I can't get into my course, you're letting them know, hey, your course is open, you should be checking now. And so hopefully we're speeding up that night before stress of, oh my gosh, I can't get in. And hopefully your students will have that same experience of being prepared. And you can also let them know any early due dates, anything that they need to be aware of. And also, as it has in there, students can decide that if this is the right class or not for them. We have a sample email that you are welcome to use. Again, we're recording this webinar, so you'll be able to view it, and I don't think we even care if you type it out word for word. So, I mean, you might want to change some dates, of course, and you might want to change the your professor to your actual name, but feel free. We want you to feel like you're going to have a good experience, and we want students to feel like they are welcomed and they're going to have a good experience as well. And one of the easiest ways to do that is just with a welcome letter that explains the basics of the course. Additionally, the more things that you can set up in advance, it might mean more work now, but it's less work later. And so there are things that you can do, like you can write and schedule news announcements as well as intelligent agents that will automate messages, and they get sent from you if a student hasn't logged in. The news items automatically populate since they are scheduled. And so this takes the work off of you of having to look at user progress, see who hasn't signed in, and it automatically sends them an email saying, and you can customize it for it to send say whatever you would like, but hey, you haven't logged in X amount of days. How are you doing? I'm concerned about your progress. As a reminder, please check in every 2 to 3 days. So by customizing that, that's fewer emails that you have to send. It's fewer things that you need to worry about, so you can really focus on engaging with your students and providing them a great experience. The news announcements are going to be on your homepage, and the intelligent agents you can find by going to your Edit Course tab. All right, so we're going to circle back around and what worked well last semester? What do you think you need to change? And at this point, what questions do you have? And do you have any tips or tricks you'd like to share? Again, we need that smooth jazz from Brett. All right. Is there a best practice for tracking discussion participation? So there are a couple different schools of thought on this. If you want students to participate in discussions, the first thing I would say is to not ask a yes or no question, and of course make sure that your questions are open-ended. So you can require participation. You can require that they have one original post and 2 replies. You can set it up in D2L where they must post first before they can see anybody else's posting, and so that way they're not going through and just summarizing everybody else's. If you do not necessarily want to require participation, you will see a decrease in replies, but I think that's a personal choice that you want to make. Also, make sure that when you are going in as the facilitator and you're responding to discussion questions, don't provide a solid "this is right" answer, because that tends to shut down the discussion. Instead, bring in other students who have provided a correct answer, or ask leading questions that would encourage the students to find and post the right answer. Hopefully those are just a few things to get you started. Karen, is there anything new in the discussion feature since spring? That is a great question, and I don't necessarily know off the top of my head if there is anything new. Are you looking for a certain feature or just in general? All right, Karen, just in general. I will let you know if I find anything out. We did send a couple people to the D2L conference, and I'll double check with them. I see multiple people are typing. While we're getting some more, how do you require a post before a reply and discussion? I believe that's under the restrictions for the individual topic. There's a certain checkbox that requires students to post before they can see the rest of the board. Jeff, again, if this is Jeff McKibben, if it's not, then I'm sorry. I've been treating you as if you are. If this is Jeff McKibben, that's something that we can talk about in our meeting next week, as well as the McGraw-Hill. Then VoiceThread as a D2L feature. I might defer to Tracy on this one, because I know that's something that we were looking forward to, and I will defer to her for if that has been implemented or not. While we're waiting for Tracy's reply, I know that we are out of time. Sarah and I will definitely stay on here until all of your questions have been answered. I wanted to put up this one last slide. We have some new things going on. We're now having open office hours before the semester starts up, and they are walk-in and virtual, so that way the Sunday before classes start, 5 to 8 p.m., if you run into a problem, we will be here. Additionally, Friday the 18th, 8:30 to 11 a.m., 2 to 5 p.m., and then Thursday the 17th, 3 to 6 p.m. Additionally, we have our course design guide. We have monthly emails called the e-learning insights. We're on Facebook. And we will also be posting in the chat box the startup checklist. And we are recording this, so if you would like to rewatch anything or get any of the resources, we would be happy to send that out to you. And we will be including this link in those e-learning insights. So to summarize, Tracy, VoiceThread has not been integrated, but we are using it as a third-party tool. And then also for tracking participation, you can open a specific discussion and click on the down arrow by title and view topic statistics. So thank you for that, Tracy. Are there any other questions? Yes, Sunday night seems to be a popular time as we're all preparing for the week. Well, thank you everybody for your participation. Again, Sarah and I will be hanging around. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box. Please feel free to email us. We are always happy to help. You are very welcome, Rowan. You're welcome, Nikki. Now we need that smooth jazz exit music. You're very welcome, Jeff. All right, Carl. Student technical problems should be referred to CC or build an IT help ticket. Yes, I defer to Sarah. IT, they can always open a help ticket, and what I have told students in the past is if they're running into a problem with D2L, submit a help ticket and then forward that response to me so that I know that they have actually opened a help ticket and they did actually have a problem. That sounds really cynical, but sometimes it helps avoid the ones that just procrastinated and perhaps didn't get an assignment done in time. It lets me know that if there was or was not an actual problem with D2L. Any last questions? Nikki, I'm showing that you raised your hand. How very polite of you. Do you have a question? No worries. Yes. That is the raise hand feature. And as you can see, people will call on you. All right. Well, if there are no last questions, then I'm going to stop recording. And thank you guys